easy go.
What's up everyone and welcome to the first very advanced, not so advanced mechanics guide, which is in fact what I was going to call it at first, referencing a joke one of my friends told me that, dude, you do realize that like 95% of the game doesn't play Cataclysm, and of those 5%, even fewer are going to attempt to actually bother doing stuff like solo running Cataclysm. Have you ever considered making a video for people who, have a life? And well, touche, he had a point. And I apologize for the title and super clickbait thumbnail, but it was sort of an experiment of sorts since I just sent my application to YouTube. And the honest truth is that in a very sad way, YouTube is a clickbait competition in the sense that they're not ever going to recommend your videos if the people who they recommend it to don't actually ever click it, if it has a low click-through rate. And although I fucking hate clickbait, I came to the conclusion that as long as the content delivers afterwards and the thumbnail and title isn't misleading, like when they do those like top 10 amazing sea creatures live today, and then you realize the thumbnail was a picture of a fucking Laplurodon which only went extinct, like 65 million years ago and had absolutely nothing in relation to the video, and you're like, god damn it, they got me, why am I so stupid? So anyways, let's count on my top 5 picks that will instantaneously teleport your skill level through space and time from recruit to legendary in like 7 easy steps. Or like something similar. 'Cause, that's just how good my tips are. I'm just saying. Anyways, although funny, enough joking about the average IQ of content creators on YouTube. Here are my top 5 tips to hopefully ease your ascent of the mountain of suffering that is jumping up a difficulty level for the first time. And the first thing you want to do, whether you think you want to or not, is go install all the verified mods. If you plan on spending anything more than an hour in this game a week, it's worth it. At some point I'll do a little bit more of an in-depth mod guide. For now I'm just going to show you super quickly how to install it, as well as the most key features, and then I'll save the bit more in-depth, time-consuming stuff for the end of the video. The first thing you do is go into the workshop after you click the game in the Steam library. Then you click most popular. Make sure you have the approved, and then most popular all time. Most popular all time and the approved. Okay, so once you have all these three, you start top left and you start clicking once here. Like I already have it installed, right? So it's going to look like a little cross here. You click it, boom, now you have it. Now trust me, don't bother reading through all the approved mods right now. For now, if you're not a really experienced player, trust me on this one. You start top left and you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just take every single one on this page, as well as the 8 ones here. Now it might at first seem like, oh, I don't need all these mods. It's gonna be super, it's gonna be too much. Trust me, it's not. You can disable them without even getting back into the screen. So once you've picked every single one of these mods, so they all have the little crosshair thing, and of course you can also remove them here at any time. Once you've done that, you go back into your library and you launch Vermintide. Now, once you get this the launch window up here, now in the top here there's a little tab called Mods. Now you click this tab. Once you click this, my bad. Once you click this tab, you're gonna have a screen that looks something like this, only with a lot fewer mods. Because I also have a bunch of mods for modded realms specifically. Now what you do is you just click this little square here. I'm not going to do it because if I do it then it's going to fuck up my modded realm settings, but you click that and then you make sure that you have the auto disable unsanctioned mods in official realm. What that does is basically, assuming you install some mods that are only works on modded realm, it's just going to automatically disable them on the official. After you've clicked up here and all of these have a cross, you just want to scroll down. And if any of them appear red, and what I mean by that is, for example here you see, that means they're in the wrong order. Now there are only a couple of mods that have to be in the top. The Vermintide mod framework, for example, has to be in the top. And there are a couple of others that have to be in, but if you did it exactly the way I said, top left and to bottom, they should all be in the correct order. But yeah, just make sure all of them, that none of them are red. So if they're all white, you're good to go. You click accept, and make sure you're on the official realm. And you click play. Now, in case some of the mods bother you in game, you can also disable them from the mod screen while you're in Vermintide. At least most of them you can. Now, as you might notice, my user interface looks really weird compared to yours. I can just set it to normal, but yeah, so your screen is not going to look like this. Like, your stuff should look normal here at the moment. But when you click inventory, it should look something like this. Now, the first thing you want to notice is you can pick, without changing the hero you're on, you can actually access talents, crafting, equipment, cosmetics on all 15 different hero variations. Which means if you want to do something real quick on one of your heroes, you don't have to actually start, switching heroes around when you're 4 people just in order to do that. Another thing you can do is if you go into equipment, and let's say you have a talent build you're like, oh, I like this build and I like these items, then as you can see down here you have 10 templates where you can save a given build. And the way you do that is, let's go bar in here, see if I find an empty spot. Yeah, I find an empty spot. Give it a name here, lol, mod guide, and save equipped. Boom, now it's saved everything that I have on right now, and if I ever wanted to load it, you would just go in here and click load all. And it should automatically get all this stuff for you. Now, you want to go into mod options here. So this is where you can actually manually do a bunch of customization for the different watts, but I'll get into that a little bit more at the end of the video. For now, I want to move on to something that's probably more relevant for most players, which is getting item power 300 as soon as possible so you can start playing the game. Now, what I mean by that is before you have item power 300, that should be your first, second, and third goal in the game. Once you reach 600 or 300 in item power, at least the 3 jewelry items you can just apply to any of the other heroes, which is going to increase the speed of the process dramatically. But just the fact that you're in a position then where you can bother to keep your items and actually care about them. Any item you have that's not 300 power is going to be scrapped at some point. So basically, here's what you want to do. Every time you open a chest or craft an item, the power that item gets or rolls is always going to be defined plus minus 5 of your highest possible average power. So let's say the average, if you put all my items together, I have an average power item level of 250. If I now craft an item, I'm going to get somewhere between 245 and 255. Now, the thing you can do here that really makes a difference in how fast you can actually reach that goal boils down to the fact that if you have one item that's significantly lower power than the rest of your items, that for a chest perspective, now it's not more likely to give you a necklace. So if you have 4 items that are high power and 1 that's dragging the average down, then suddenly you have a very low chance of either of the other items as well getting a higher power, and there's no higher chance of you getting that specific item which is low power, where you would then get a guaranteed higher powered item. So every time you have one item that's significantly lower than your average, you go and you craft one of those, because that craft is then guaranteed to give you the item that you need, and it's guaranteed assuming that it's more than 5 below your average, and it's a guaranteed higher roll. And even if it's not more than 5, then if you roll craft 1 or 2, it's gonna get there, so you can jump maybe 5 power. But not just that, after you've done that, your average evens out, which means now the next chest you then open, you have a much more even curve, which means any item that you get that's then higher power than your average is going to be way more likely to actually be an item you can equip and now increase your power. So basically what you want to do is between every second 2 or 3 games, you go and you check, you equip all your highest power shit, you craft the lowest, then you open your next chest. And if you just do that once every 2 or 3 games, that is significantly, drastically going to increase the speed at which your power goes up. Now obviously, since I have max power, I can roll between 295 and 300, so it can only go the wrong way for me. And basically you really don't want to care about your items until they reach 300 power. You want to save your dust for the rerolls you need once you get to 300 power. And crafting an item here and there really isn't expensive, and any item that's then deemed like as soon as it's lower power, you just disenchant it and don't give a fuck about it. Because once you reach 300 power, you then like, you're gonna have the materials you need to just upgrade a 300 power white weapon to an orange anyways. Also, one thing you want to keep in mind is if you reached max level but you're still not at 300 item power, one thing you can do is play a different hero. Go on one of your level 1 heroes, and because you're going to get accommodation just for each level, which is a really good way of just getting those, you know, in between boxes where you just care about the power. And accommodation chests are great for that, simply because they're easy to obtain, and that way you can save some of the good chests for when you have 300 power, because better chests don't drop higher power items. They just have a higher statistical likelihood of dropping a rarer item, which is irrelevant since you're gonna disenchant those items anyways. Up next, I just thought I'd share a couple of the more important setting tweaks you can do in game. Now, a dude called Milk and Cookies has a much more in-depth video about this. I'm just going to go over a couple of the quick ones. This is specifically meant for new players, so we're just going to take the most important ones and the ones that are really going to make a difference. 6, player outlines always on. That is a must. It makes it 10 times harder to lose your teammates because they're always going to have the outline, especially before you're experienced enough to just know the maps inside out. It's super easy to lose sight of where is everyone, where do people go, you're stressed out. Always on also helps really well in like dark maps where you can't see them otherwise, so it's a super important setting to have on. Camera shake and head bobbing, I guess that's more of a preference, but it's definitely, it gives you a competitive advantage to have them off, and I just find them annoying altogether. The same with motion blur, which is that might be under video, but yeah, I'll get to that one as well. Like, it does reduce the immersiveness of the game, so I can understand if you're like a really new player, like we're talking recruit, then maybe you want to wait with some of those settings simply to get a better feel for the game. But once you get to higher difficulties, the game is relentless and unforgiving, and at a certain point you're going to prefer being able to see stuff while you're moving. Okay, video. You want to go to, where is it? Yeah, here, motion blur off. Definitely motion blur off. And I suggest sharpness filter on. The rest here is, again, it's a matter of preference. They aren't, like, it's not necessary to have all of these off, but it does give you an advantage because you will be blinded from time to time. Stuff will be harder to, it's going to be harder to spot a special amidst a bunch of other minions due to things like sun flares. So the game definitely looks worse with all those settings off, but especially if you have frame rate issues or input delay. At least if it's your GPU that's lacking, then what you might want to do is keep the textures on a higher setting. Turn anything off that has to do with shadows and light, because light is notoriously GPU heavy. And like, this is a great looking game. It really is. But honestly, it can look amazing. Even like, you don't have to have the graphics maxed out. Like, if your frames drop every single time you get overrun, but if you really care about winning a lot, then removing something like lens flares so you don't get blinded by the sun can be an advantage. But again, that's not necessary at all. So that's more a matter of preference. Also, setting the where is it? Auto exposure speed, maxing that is gonna make light changes happen quicker, which again means you're not blinded for for as long as you otherwise would be. Now, under audio, it's very important that you have the dynamic range set to high. This is basically, it changes the variations in sound level. Basically, it's going to be easier for you to hear specials, and you want to be able to hear specials in this game. That's like really important. You can already know whether a strangler is coming from the front or the back if you listen a little bit, and it takes some time to get used to, but sound is really key to this game, and really key to getting better. A couple of key binding tips. First thing, you want to not have jump and dodge on space. You want to use jump only and dodge only if you can. You don't have to use the same buttons as me, but not having them on the same is going to ensure that you don't accidentally jump when you want to dodge and dodge when you want to jump. So if you can get used to that, definitely do it. Also, you don't want to use the scroller for weapon swapping if you can. I think most people just use the quick swap, which is totally fine, but if you want to have another edge there, you want to separate that as well. So you have a wheeled melee and a wheeled range. That way, if you have your ranged equip, shit hits the fan, you need to make sure on your swap that you don't accidentally double tap, which can happen if you're super stressed. You might, get one too far and put your ranged weapon back on. So personally, I use Q and C. Q for melee, C for ranged, and then I have the quick swap on my mouse. That's how I like to do it. Again, it's not a necessary option, but if you are planning on playing the game a lot, it's definitely something to consider at least. Now, sooner or later, you're going to find yourself in a scenario where you want to jump up a difficulty level. Now, two primary things, there are two things that make people play terrible the first time they do that. And it usually comes down to one of these two things. And it's usually way too much focus or not enough confidence. Let me explain. Although vaguely, I do recall the issue I had, and that was laser focus. I was so preoccupied with making sure that I didn't fail, that I wasn't the one getting hit by an assassin, that I wasn't the one dragging the team down, that I ended up having absolutely no sense of what was happening to anyone else but myself. Kind of the same when you're playing ranked games, PvP, and you always lose that one game where you're like, oh, I really can't lose right now, because then I'm gonna drop down a league or whatever. And you always lose those games because you're not playing how you normally would. And it's the same with the lack of confidence. The other issue, it's that now you're playing Legend, and again, because you don't want to be that guy who fucks it up for the team, you then essentially you change your playstyle, whereas before you would have taken the aggressive choice, and now instead you played it passive, and now you're surrounded. If you don't, you have to play the game with confidence. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you're scared of the minions, you're gonna get fucked. And I'm not saying to play either passively or aggressively. I'm saying play how you normally would, because the first time in a new difficulty level is probably not the right time to throw away everything you've learned in the previous difficulties, and you will very quickly learn to adapt to the changes in a couple of matches. One thing you can do, if you do find yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone and skill level, is just make sure you're never the person furthest ahead or furthest in the back, because that way, first of all, you're always going to have people from either side potentially being able to save you if you die, but also you're never going to be the person who died just because they weren't with the team. People very rarely get mad at others for getting wrecked because they got hit in the face. My experience, at least, positioning is probably the single biggest contributor to people arguing, and also, at least on the higher difficulties, also try to be a little bit conservative with your spending of resources, as well as being willing to share it. So if you find a Kong pot, give it to the shade. Make sure, even if you die a lot, then don't necessarily always heal just because you're scared of dying. If you're not gray in health, at least on Legend and above, then normally you shouldn't heal. At the very least, make sure someone else doesn't need it more than you before you do. Also, you shouldn't worry too much about friendly fire. Some people are very sensitive about it, but honestly, the damage output, at least on Champion, but even on Legend, is so minuscule compared to what you just shot behind them that might have hit them, that assuming that they're not really low HP, of course, then you gotta worry, or if it's an Iron Breaker so you don't proc his passive all the time, but most of the time, friendly fire is not that big of a deal. It just isn't. I cannot recall a game that I've lost due to friendly fire. I might have just forgot about it, but I've played 3,000 hours, and literally I cannot recall that. So even if I have, it's a tiny amount at the very least. So by far the most important thing is a winner's mentality. And what do I mean by when I say that? A winner's attitude is a different way to put it. And the best metric for predicting your win rate, or whether you're gonna win when you're playing with randoms, is not it's not your combined hours played. It's not your mechanical skill, and it's not your knowledge of the game. I'd say 95% of all quick play games that are lost comes down to one of two things: lack of caring or lack of communication. And you really only need a little bit of both to be successful. I might even state that the amount of mechanical skill you need to be successful in Vermintide is proportional to the amount you lack in team play. Another thing is that score does not matter. Kills does not matter, and that's what I mean, but it's the win that's gonna get you loot, not the kills. And there's no permanent stats in this game, so you don't have to worry about your KD. It doesn't matter. And I know it feels like it matters. At the end of the game, you're like, oh, I was good. I dealt damage. No, you fucking moron. You played Shade, okay? That's not how it works. And even if you wanted to measure, special kills would be more important by far. But again, it's all about roles. Because even in the special kill case, it's like, well, if I'm huntsman, I want to be the one who kills special. That's literally the job of this guy. He's here because he has high accuracy, like high damage, high accuracy, one shot, single target DPS. But if you put him in a horde, I'm fucked. And what that means is if you're playing Zealot, for example, then it's your job to make sure I'm not fucked, so I can shoot specials and make sure you're not fucked, if that makes sense. And that's what people often forget. If you're like playing a hero with high mobility and a high HP, and generally someone who has an easy time surviving in chaos, then it's equally much your job to make sure that the huntsman doesn't die, as it is his job, because he's gonna have a really hard time surviving. Like huntsman is really, really weak if he doesn't have his ulti. Even if he uses his ulti, there's no minion walkthrough, so you have 6 seconds to, and you're on the high difficulty levels, you're gonna die in no time on huntsman. Yet he's one of the best heroes in the entire game to have on your team, if the team works just, if you just care a little bit about him, during the hordes, make sure he's behind you and not vice versa. Because if you give him room to breathe, he will give you room. It's like you just keep minions 1 meter away from him, and he's gonna kill them in half the time you can. So even though sometimes it's better to just not kill stuff. I know, I said it. But sometimes if you're one of those scenarios where there's a horde on this side, you might have a door, the entire team is standing. Like I'm maybe not in there. Let me find a better scenario here. Okay, let's see. The entire team is down here somewhere. We're all. This is a typical spot. And it's not helpful to have 4 people standing here hitting the horde, just because horde is there, minion kill. That's not helpful. Two people can easily keep that back. 1 person might even be able to. So if there's already 1 or 2 guys standing here, then the first thing you do is you look the other way, even if nothing is arriving from this spot. That's your job, because if everyone else is preoccupied over there, then you need to be preoccupied with the spot where no one is preoccupied, even if that means less kills. Because that's what often happens, right? How often have you died because it's like a couple of trash behind you, right? Because no one bothered to look behind us, because they were all trying to outfarm each other's kills. So really try to think about this team mentality. Put your focus where everyone else isn't, because everyone can just play Zealot and just get low HP and just hack and slash everything, or pick shade, deal a couple of ultis to a boss, and oh, now I have high DPS. That's not what it's about. Keeping your true skill in this game is keeping your teammates alive. It really is. But ask yourself this: what is the objective of this game? The objective is winning. Winning this map. If we can get to the end of this map, then we all get something for it, and we can go our separate ways after if we want to. But we have to get to the end of the map, or anything you gained during the map that isn't your skill or XP is lost. If you finish a challenge, quests, stuff like that, minions you kill for a quest or whatever it might be, that's all erased the second you lose. And so often teams, they lose because they simply don't give a fuck about each other. They're living in their own bubble of play, and it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. And if you have someone on your team who's like that, then it's always on you to be the bigger person and be the person who, okay, well, if he's super annoying and keeps playing like this, maybe he's super slow or super fast. Both things can be annoying for the team. But if he's just constantly slow, you have a choice. You can either run ahead of him and risk losing the game, or you can just deal with it for 1 fucking match and let him be slow and pull him along, and then you carried him. And what's the harm in that? Honestly, people are so caught up with how everyone else plays, when really it's not how. It's that you play together. It's always going to be on you to be willing to change your behavior for the other guy. If you wanna, like, if he's rushing, then try to rush with him, see what happens. If he's super slow, then wait for him, see what happens. At least until you've tried that, you have no right to complain. Like, it doesn't matter if you go through the game fast or slow, as long as everyone is on the same pace. Like, I used to be the captain of a Heroes of New Earth team, which is basically Dota 1.5, right? A MOBA. And the one thing that was surprisingly way more important than making the right call was that the call was made, and then everyone else agreed on it. So you know, making the like the less optimal decision, but doing that as a group was so much more important. And it didn't even have to be me who made the call. If someone makes a call, which is to say in Vermintide terms, if a person decides to jump down, follow him as a group. Even if it was the wrong thing to do, now you gotta do it as a group. If someone pulls a patrol, stop whining about it and get to work. So if you truly care, what you truly care about is winning and loot and progressing, then statistically speaking, changing your own behavior is always going to be way more likely to have a positive outcome than if you expect them to change it for you. And like, in the same way, that way you're always going to have people who want to play with you. Like, I don't care if people die 5 times during the match. I really don't. But it only takes one death where the entire team is like, hey dude, come here, spamming the emotes, and he's just staying far away. Like, he's just running off in his own bubble, and then suddenly he dies. But he also managed to trigger a bunch of specials, and now the entire team wiped. But let's say I, for whatever reason, politely ask a player, hey dude, can I have that strength pot? And he's like, no, I need it. Instantaneously, I'm just, I don't want to play with you. And I don't even care if it's better that you have it, that's not what it's about. And I'm not going to make a big deal out of it in game, because again, that's just not going to lead anywhere. But you can be damn sure that you're not in my group next game. And there's really no reason to be bothered. Because like, you can't shield yourself from stupid people. They're always going to be there. You can only choose how you react. That's the only thing that's within your control. And pointing out other people's mistakes is just never productive. But if you focus on winning, and not on pointing out other people's like flaws and being, you know, annoying to them, that helps much more than you probably think. Like, it's amazing how rare it is that I feel like a person is toxic in this game now. Because like, when I was a fucking noob, I also felt like I felt it myself. It was super annoying when you're like jumping up a difficulty level and you can't keep up. You feel like you're constantly, you know, oh shit. But instead, you should ask for help, because then people are inclined to do so. Like, it's in their best interest to help you. And from a psychological perspective, you're always gonna be more successful in changing someone else's behavior by actually requesting help from them, other than telling them what to do. And as a person who's been on either side of that, like, sometimes they don't even realize perhaps that they're rushing. They don't even notice, because they're playing their own game. And like, there was a period before Winds of Magic, before Cataclysm, where I was super guilty of this myself. And I recall a game where there was a person really, really whining about the fact that I was playing so fast, and in my mind I was just like, who cares? Like, if I can solo this entire match myself, why would I even be bothered? I'm carrying you, you're getting free loot, whatever. But you know, that's literally what I was thinking in my head. And it wasn't until afterwards, being bothered, that this is one of the first times I really felt triggered in Vermintide. And I realized it came down to the fact that he died, and then he blamed it on me and told me to stop rushing. And I noticed he had 50 hours played, and I had over 1,000, so I was like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? In other words, stop telling other people how to play the game. Or just do like I did and get a YouTube channel to boost your own ego, and tell everyone else how to play the game, while simultaneously also telling them not to tell others how to play the game.
A few moments later.
Damn, I'm smart. I must be like a super genius. Anyways, let's get to the bonus part. I'm not going to tell you every single setting for all of the mods, because there's quite a few. You're going to have to look around a little bit yourself. But just to give an example here, this mod can, for example, it can remove some of the visual impairments that are just unnecessary. Like, for example, whenever you drink a potion, by default, you get healed. The entire screen almost turns white for a moment, which is really, really unnecessary. You can also disable things like blood splatters, so your entire screen isn't red, and now you can't see the assassin that's jumping you. You can remove things like the visual or audio effects from potions and stuff like that. You might not want to do that if you're really, really new, because they might tell you something about the duration of the potion. But at some point, all of these are really just visual impairments. which make it harder to actually notice stuff that happens. Then you have some like the armory and the bestiary. Now you can set a hotkey for the armory, and here you have a list of every single available item in the game, how it functions, all of its skins, everything. And if you click /bestiary, here you have a list of every single minion in the game on all the different difficulties, the monsters, the bosses, as well as some extra stats. Crafting wise, you can see it looks a little bit different. It actually it's much easier and much better organized. Upgrade items, illusions, traits, but it's all there. Show you a reroll, for example. You're just gonna reroll something random. You can see now instead it actually shows you the properties here. It goes much faster. It's a win-win. What else do we have of important stuff? Crosshair fix. I'd look into that as well, and maybe in crosshair customization. Let's see, what else do we have? Numeric UI. I checked that out as well. Again, it's of course it varies from person to person what they would prefer. Playlist plus, yeah, that's really important. If another person has this mod applied as well, I would be able to see all the stuff he has equipped as well, which is really useful, right? When you're playing, you're like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. He's like, I want to check out his build. You don't have to meticulously ask him for every single property. You can just check right here. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, pointless stuff like weapon kill counter. So you can see how much stuff you screwed up with that particular weapon. Also UI tweaks, if you don't want to spend your time on UI tweaks, because it can really matter. Like I really hate the default UI now, but I also play this game, ridiculously much. So if you have a 1920 1080 times 1920 screen resolution, then make sure you have show presets and show outside of keep, and then you click enter, and once you click enter, you should be able to go up here. So if you want to have my UI settings, make sure you have show presets UI set on. Click enter. Then up here is where you have your own presets, and somewhere in this mess, I don't know which page it's on because I just uploaded it, but you type in this command, and then you look from pages 1 to 9, manually one at a time. You can change the page, so let's say page 3, and then you check here, and then you look for a preset called Unreal Interface. So Unreal Interface, if you see that, that's the preset I have going on here. You can see the settings for all of your teammates, but I spend a lot of time building it up, so if you don't want to spend a bunch of time, that should be easier than doing it manual at the very least. Want to copy the UI that I'm currently using here, which is going to have items. Oh, wait, let me show you. So this is basically how it looks. As you can see, when the ulti is on cooldown, you have the timer right near your stamina. It has half transparent priority buffs in the top, as well as not so useful buffs just under my health, between my items and my health bar. You can see there's a buff down there. So that's where the not important buffs are going to appear, and the important ones are in the top, the ones where you really want to notice the timer. And then you have the old ready icon, the purple skull, also in each position. On the left side is the ammo you have in your clip. On the right side is the remaining ammo you have. And all of your teammates' information is going to be in the bottom left corner. Also very neatly organized to not fill up too much space, yet be really easy to spot. So I've optimized it as best as I can, and I'm not sure which page it's on, but assuming that the uploads work the way I think they do, you want to go UT, preset, and then you want to find the right page. There's 9 pages, so it's going to be somewhere from 1 to 9, and you need to click 4, for example, enter, and then you need to find somewhere in this mess, you need to find one called Unreal Interface. So if you see one called Unreal Interface, that should be that I did here, which I probably spent 3 hours or something setting up at least. But enough of that. That's mostly if you wanted the easy way out. You can also tweak it by yourself, but there's a lot of stuff to go through if you want to do that. So that's not necessary, let's put it that way. What else do we have? Parry indicator can also be really useful. If you apply it, basically your stamina is going to light up at the exact moment you could have activated a perfect block with parry on your melee weapon. And there's a bunch of other things, but it's all positive. There's literally no downside to these mods. And if there is one of them that annoys you for whatever reason, guess what? It is removable. Dun dun dun. No, just kidding. If you guys are still here, thank you so much for watching, man. I appreciate it. I don't know why, but every single time I'm like, I'm just gonna make, quick, 5-minute guide with 5 tips, and then I don't know. Do I overcomplicate things? I just looked at the length of this video and I was like, oh hell no, this is supposed to be an easy video. Please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, please consider it anyways. No. Or just even like some feedback. I really need some feedback for this video, guys. Honest feedback, as long as you come attached, with like a 1-sentence phrase that I can actually use for something constructive. Then say whatever you want as long as you're honest. But thank you so much for watching this far. I love you guys. Hope you enjoyed, and stay awesome.